Hey there, my friends. It's Andy coming to you live from Orange County, California. And I've been excited for this interview that I'm going to be doing today with Susie Schaefer for a lot of reasons. I've felt the power of being a #1 best-selling author. I've also felt the fear of writing my very first book. And it took me probably way longer than it should have for me to get that out. And then after that, it got much easier. We're going to talk about those dynamics and how that all works, and why it's important for you to put out the information that you have in that head of yours. You have something that somebody needs and wants to hear and needs to hear. And so we're going to talk about that. And why Susie is one of the best in the business for doing that kind of stuff. I'm going to share her website here with you. It's called Finish the Book Publishing. Actually, let me change this background so it looks a little bit better. There we go. And I'm going to take you to her bio. She likes pineapples. We're going to be learning a little bit more about that. That pineapple shows up everywhere. It's even on top of her head, I think, here in this next picture that I'm going to show you. I like that. But Susie loves books, goes far beyond the feel of a fabric cover or the smell of a library. Her passion for helping authors put out high-end quality books and market them successfully brings her tremendous joy, especially when they become an Amazon bestseller. Susie hails from 3 decades in corporate America, teaching and training, becoming a marketing expert, and working with nonprofits and in radio broadcasting and commercial acting. Susie has been called the go-to gal by her clients for teaching workshops for writers, guiding authors through the independent publishing process to finish that dream book, launch their speaking career, or build a business. There's more there, but we're going to have Susie tell us a little bit more about herself instead of me going through all of her website. And so I want to bring on Susie now. Hey, Susie, nice to see you.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. And right under Susie's name, you can see her website. It's called finishthebookpublishing.com. Just go there and you'll be able to see her website and get in contact with her once you learn about how fantastic Susie is. Susie is also a member of our mastermind group called the Business Accelerator Group, and she's a welcome addition, a new addition to our group. If you don't know, a mastermind group is a group of professionals, entrepreneurs. In our case, it's entrepreneurs and publishers. And your value in being in that mastermind is that you bring something. Not only do you take information, but you also bring something to the group. And I feel kind of bad because Susie has so much to offer. And I gotta come up with more stuff because you have such good stuff. And so what I want people to learn first about you is a little bit about, other than what I just read, is there more about you that you think that our audience should know?
Well, it's interesting because I've recently been dubbed as the book angel for Cause Publishing. And so it's always changing, I'm telling you what. So really what I do is I help guide people through the process of writing and publishing their book successfully, especially when it means that they can merge their business and their brand with a cause and help impact the world.
Awesome. So just really quick, I just want to hit this because you have pineapples all over you, all around you.
I do.
They even match your hair color. What is it with the pineapple? Why is that such a significant aspect of your business?
So I'm glad you asked that because I do get that question a lot, and there's a meaning behind it. So part of my years in corporate America was that my background was in hospitality management. And if you know hospitality management, you know that the pineapple represents hospitality, welcoming, and friendship. But more than that, it also transcends multiple cultures around the world. In ancient times, they used to carry a pineapple to parties as a symbol of prosperity and wealth. And so I use the pineapple as my logo. And if you look very closely at the logo design, you'll see that inside the base of the pineapple, those little squares are actually little tiny books.
Oh, wow. I never realized that. That's pretty cool. Nice job. So those of you that are watching, I can see we have several people watching. Feel free to write in a comment or a question, whatever question you may have. I'll ask Susie and pass it on. She'll have access to the video through the replay and that kind of stuff. So she may be able to answer some of those questions in further detail. And again, her URL is right underneath their name there, finishthebookpublishing.com. Sorry, it's a small font. I had to take a double look there. And make sure and go to that website also. I want to first address the issue that I talked about in my intro, that I'm sure I'm not the only person who has this feeling that I have this book in me. I have this idea, and I think somebody might need to hear it or may want to hear it, but I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid of sitting. I can't type. I obviously can't type. You've seen some of the things probably that I put out. It's a horrible spelling and punctuation. What about people like us that have this book in us, but we're too afraid to put it out? How do you address that as a publisher?
Well, some people are very comfortable with the writing process. And so developing a book and actually writing a book is fairly simple for them. They feel compelled to do that writing exercise. There are other people that aren't comfortable with that. And I work with another business partner who we do a sort of vocal journaling where it's an interview style and the questions are asked, which usually you go through about 5 or 6 sessions of this Q&A kind of situation where it's just a conversation. It's recorded and then transcribed so that gives you the base to start with your first draft.
So if somebody is to write their book, what I did is I just started typing. I had learned from, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was a one of the, not a self-help, but like a business coach type of person. I wish I could remember his name. He was fairly popular back in the day. But I remember going to a seminar that he was at, and he said, if you want to write a book, don't worry about anything. Just start typing. Don't worry about going back and fixing capitals or punctuation. Just keep typing and don't stop. And that's how I wrote my first book. Is that another way that you suggest that people do, just to get it out there and then you can help them take care of the rest?
Absolutely. So just start typing and let it flow. It's kind of a subconscious way of writing. Using journaling is also a great way. And I'd also teach the sticky note method, which is a little bit different than trying to create an outline and then write according to your outline. When we use the sticky note method, it's really about figuring out what are the topics you want to write about and then writing about those topics individually and then coming back and organizing them later. Sometimes what happens is you might wake up in the morning and have this inspiration to write about a specific topic. And when that inspiration strikes is when you need to just sit down and just bang it out on the computer and then just let it go. It's out, it's done. And you can always go back and edit later, but just, using that moment of inspiration to write.
Yeah, it's funny you say sticky notes. I remember when I had a business here in Yorba Linda, I don't know what I was thinking, but everything I thought about went on a sticky note. And I could have that if I would have put all my sticky notes together, it could have been a novel. Because I remember my assistant coming and go, what are all these sticky notes you got to, I don't know. I feel like I need to write stuff down. And then I really got into journaling. I got journal books all over the place. And then also digitally on my computer. All right.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the concept of everybody has a book in them? I teach that. I could be wrong, but I think that everybody has a story. Every person may have a way of doing something that somebody, may be a shortcut. Like one of the reasons I wrote some of the books that I did is because I knew that if I told somebody how to do it, they wouldn't have to go through all the headache and heartache that I went through, that I could speed up their journey as opposed to having them go through a 10-year journey. It would be only a year journey or maybe a 6-month journey. What do you think about the concept that everybody has something that somebody else needs to hear?
I agree with it. In fact, statistics show us that 87% of the population feel like they are compelled to write a book or tell their story in some way. So I think that is actually low. I think it's higher than that. And I think that everybody has a story in them. It's just whether or not you feel like your story is important enough. And, I'm here to tell you it's important. So, get out there and tell your story and write your book.
Okay, awesome. You're one of the only people that I know that in our group, which is, we have 25 something people in our group. Not all of them show up every 2 weeks, but we have that number in there. But I think you're the only one who's talked about screenplays. And I added that into the title because you brought it up one day. And I have 2 screenplays over the last years that I've written out the concepts mostly. The hardest part is coming up with the ending for me. I was able to come up with the beginning. I just cannot come up with the end. How is writing a screenplay or a script different than writing a book? What's the difference between the two?
It's completely different. And I think that's where a lot of authors, when they think about writing a book, they don't understand that when you translate that into a screenplay, it's completely different. And I'm fortunate to have a background in acting, so I understand how that has to work. So Where in a book, you're going to give more detail and you're going to, obviously it's going to be longer. A screenplay is much shorter. It's on average, around 100 to 120 pages total. And so where you may be able to be very descriptive in a book, that has to translate into what is the action, what is the scene going to look like, and how's the dialogue going to work to keep that momentum moving forward, because it's all condensed. A book might be 8 hours of reading, whereas you have to condense that and make it so that it fits into a 2-hour film if you're doing something for film. So yeah, you kind of have to look at it from a different perspective. And it also helps if you understand production, because production is a completely different animal. You have to understand what are big production costs. What's the film industry doing right now? What are trends in the industry? Whether it's television, short films, documentaries, whatever that might be. So understanding how the industry works and what they're looking for is really important.
All right. So I got two questions that are I'm trying to figure out which order I want to ask them. But let's first address where your book, once you've written your book, edited your book, you got your cover, you got your back cover, you got your inside cover, you got the spine. There's all these little things that we have to worry about when we're writing a book, and we're going to kind of leave that to you, the experts, to help people out with those types of things. Just understand that's part of the process. That's really important. The next thing I want to address after all that is that where your book falls in regard to sales, as far as being a one of the top 100 books, a top 10, a number one best-selling book. Where does that fall in importance, do you think, in getting the word out? Not necessarily making money. One of the things I try to tell people is that you probably won't become rich off your book. It's what happens after your book, what you do with it, speak on stage, get on television, whatever that. So the important thing for that placement of your book to be able to do something with your book, how does that best-selling status help, hurt? Does it matter?
It does. It matters tremendously. And a lot of people don't think that it has that much value, but it does, because when you get to bestseller, whether it's top 100 or number one, you can use that in your marketing content. So it shows that you've actually put the effort in, that you are marketing your book. Many times, if you are looking to become a TEDx speaker, a lot of times you can't even be considered unless you're published. So you just being aware that you've done the book, you've written the book, you're marketing your book, you're getting good sales, you're becoming a bestseller. Those are all things that you use in part of your marketing, whether that's to get you on stage, whether that's to promote a program that you might have online, or wherever you're going to go and wherever your book's going to take you. Establishing the end goal or the trajectory for how your book is going to help your business is really important in the beginning, because it helps you create that marketing plan for your book and where it's going to take you.
All right. So let me address this part. This is another thing that it gets brought up by, I'm going to explain after I ask the question and what your answer is. So let me address that. You have something would be called an Amazon number one bestseller in certain categories. You then have Wall Street Journal, USA Today, New York Times bestseller. Does it matter really if you're an Amazon number one bestseller or a New York Times number one bestseller when it comes to what happens after your book?
Well, it depends on, again, your platform, and it depends on what your goals are. If you are a first-time author, you're probably not going to make it to Wall Street bestseller. It just is not going to happen. You have to sell, for example, I think it's between 5,000 and 10,000 books within a week. And then you still have to go through the selection process. So it's difficult to do. So if you're a first-time author, then you absolutely want to go for Amazon bestseller, because it's easy to do. And it really just means you're doing your homework, you're putting yourself in the right categories, and it's a lot easier to do that than trying to go after like Wall Street. So, if you have a huge platform and you've got a backing and you can sell 10,000 books in a week, then absolutely go for Wall Street, because you'll probably get there. But it's about using the tools that they give us as publishers and authors, and then making it work for whatever your situation is.
So the thing I wanted to say is that I'm a proud 9-time number one best-selling author internationally with 9 different books, all on Amazon. And I can tell you, And thank you. I've been on, but I just wanted to make this point. I've been on television because of my books. I've been on television with my son. At the time, he was 8. Now he's 14. With my on NBC and the WB. Because of my books, I've spoken at Caesar's Palace and Planet Hollywood to thousands of people at a time. I'm just sharing that all with you so I can get to this point. Never did they ask me, is it New York? Is it Wall Street? No, I'm a number one best-selling author. It's on my one sheet that says I'm a number one best-selling author. It gets submitted to the producers and they bring me on. At no time did they, they may not have even fact check me to make sure that I was a number one best-selling author. But I could confidently put on there number one international best-selling author, and the next thing you know, I'm on television.
Exactly. And so it is important to have that in order to properly market yourself for whatever you're doing. You're not necessarily worried about selling books. It's a marketing tool. So the other thing that I would say is if you are looking to turn your book into a movie, television, or documentary, something like that, it is really important that you go after bestseller, because production companies, studios will look at that. That is an indication of how serious you are. So yeah, they look at that. So if you're planning on creating a screenplay and pitching it to studios, then you absolutely you want to go after bestseller.
Yeah, because that would go on their sizzle reel, from the number one best-selling book or New York best-selling Times book, and so that adds to the advertisement and credibility of what it is they're about to see. All right, so now the next question. I think I did this in the right order. So, talking about using my book and getting on stage and getting on television, that kind of stuff. Do you help with that process? What do I, now that I become a best-selling author? Now what do I do? Where do I go? How do I do it? Who do I send it to? Do you have any tricks you teach or talk about, or you just end at the book?
No, we absolutely talk about what are next steps. Sometimes for some people, it's getting into a speaker service. Like, for example, being able to connect with people that can do podcasts or get them into, speaking to groups and things like that. Sometimes it's somebody who says, now I want to make a documentary out of this. And so, we look at what next steps are. Sometimes they've done what they want to do, and then they need to kind of let things brew a little bit and see where it goes, and then pick up with that later on. So, it's just writing a book and publishing. It's not over. I mean, there's lots you can do with that.
One thing I just was reminded of as you were talking is that I've taken one of my books was out of a PowerPoint presentation I did, and then I recorded me teaching that PowerPoint presentation, and then I turned it into a book. That's called Dog Sniff Evidence, and that's I probably made I don't even want to tell you a whole lot of money off of that little tiny book. But it was mostly audio. It was a mixture. I would say it was probably 60% audio, and the other 40% was from my presentation. And then I have another book that was entirely dictated at an event in San Diego. In a day, I dictated the entire book and then had it transcribed. Do you think, how do you look at that kind of stuff, that dictating a book and then having somebody else sort all the words out and make it look, make it read well?
Yeah, you can do that. And in fact, one of the things that I do let authors know is that it is important that you have multiple products with your book. So not only a paperback, but also a hardcover book, an ebook, and an audiobook. It's important that you have all these different, because readers don't always read in one particular format. Many readers are hybrid readers. I am, for example. If I go to the beach, I'm taking a physical book with me because I like the way it feels in my hand when I'm sitting on the beach. But if I'm reading at night, I use my Kindle because for me, the e-reader is much easier on my eyes. So you have to realize that people are now hybrid readers. So it's not just one way, and audiobooks are fantastic too. So you've got to have multiple products out there, and then you take those products and you can leverage them however you're going to use them, whether it's creating a podcast or maybe a program on your website that goes hand in hand with a book. It also gives you the option to, for example, publish a book and then turn around and maybe create a journal or a workbook that goes alongside that. And so again, you're selling multiple products, but really it's to also help market whatever your business is and funnel that traffic in to see that you have multiple products.
You remind me, I always forget, I have like 25 journals I've published on Amazon. And what I did is I took a breed of dog and created a cover based on that breed of dog. So the journal is the Boxer Journal, the German Shepherd Journal, the Poodle Journal. So I created a whole bunch of books. So I've published somewhere. What's that?
And what I would recommend is that during National Dog Month or whatever that is, that you take and you put links to all of those journals on your social media pages and get people to go and buy those journals during National Dog Month or whenever that is. So, you can see how one little thing like this, you can turn this into a complete marketing plan for your business and to drive traffic to wherever you're distributing your books, whether it's Barnes & Noble or Amazon or even through your website. So yeah, the opportunities are endless because now you have a tool.
Yeah, I feel like I need to, because there may be some people that are sad when I said you're not going to become wealthy off of your book. Like, what? I put in 3 years of writing a book, and I'm not going to become the next J.K. Rowling's, or what is that's right? J.K. Rowling. I don't know. I can remember her name.
That's right.
But that's just the truth. I mean, it really is just the truth because of the margins and a whole bunch of other stuff. But in the case of dog sniff evidence, for instance, that's a book that talks about how narcotics dogs are used to search for narcotics, and that evidence that's recovered in that dog sniff. The book is originally written for canine handlers, how to not make any mistakes so that the narcotics can be used in the evidence of a criminal case. Right. The funny thing is that most defense attorneys love my book because it teaches them what to look for in a drug dog case. So what I've learned, and this is just one of the things you can do, and you probably have some other examples, is that I used that book in two ways. In a small meeting of maybe 300 attorneys, where they asked me, like they flew me to Philadelphia. There were about 150 attorneys in the room. I took a box of books and gave each one of those books to the attorneys that attended the meeting. The reason being is that if I hand out the business card, I'd be lucky if even 2 of those business cards would make it back to the office, because they throw them away or they'd wash them in their pants when I got home. But people don't throw away a book. People put a book on a bookshelf. People put a book, on the table, in the bathroom. The book always kind of stays. They never really throw away that book. So that's one way. Another way, and in a larger audience, like at Caesar's Palace, when there was about 1,000, 1,200 people in attendance, I used it as encouragement to ask questions. So that anytime I would say, anybody raises their hand as a question, is when they raise their hand and ask the question, I'd have a runner take one of my books to the person that asked a question. So it really caused a lot more engagement, because now everybody wanted a book. So you should have seen all the hands going up and they're asking questions. And I must have given away probably about 100 books during my 2-hour presentation, and had a lot of questions. And even afterwards, people would come up and say, hey, I have a question. I'd give them a book. So it just continued. And I would now make contact with people. They were thankful that I gave them something. And then 5-6 years later, I still get phone calls to this day from people that attended one of those events that says, hey, I had your book and I needed an expert on this particular case. And the first person I thought of was you, because you handed me a book and I had your phone number in it. It had your website in it. It had all your contact information in it. And so it was a powerful way of using that book. So do you have any other examples of how somebody might use a book?
So absolutely. Using your book and making sure that you have a page in the back of your book that talks specifically about your business and the services that you offer. It's basically an extended business card. So you want to have that, because when you're speaking to a group, you can either include the cost of your book in your ticket price and give it away for free, or you can sell books at the back of the room, or you can offer a multitude of ways. An organization might say, okay, we're going to pay you to come in as a speaker, and maybe your rate is a little bit lower because they're going to buy 500 books. So your book is a negotiating tool as well. So you got to make sure that you use that. The other thing is that, for example, with my book, in fact, everybody, let me just get that in camera there, The Pivot Project. This is an anthology that is 10 brand new authors. They each wrote a chapter in it, and we published the book. Here's the cool thing. Those 10 authors are now on Amazon. So when they write their own book, they can link this book to their book. Okay, so this is their getting their toes in the water and kind of working with, okay, I understand how publishing works. So then they can all go out and write their own book. The other thing that I do is I use this book as a tool. So when I work with an author, in fact, everybody in the group that wanted a copy of the book, I just sent you a copy of the book today. But I sent this to my authors and say, this is going to be our template for when we're talking about doing your book, and especially the design piece, so that we can talk about back cover, front cover, spine, interior, all of the elements. This is what I use as a guide. So your book can be used in a multitude of ways, and you better believe that there's a business page in the back of this book that talks about what I offer to when I work with authors. So again, your book it's endless what it can do for you. You just have to figure out, okay, how do I want to use this book? And then how am I going to write this book? What am I going to talk about? What are the main topics? Who's going to want to read this book? Who's going to find value in it? And then you just do that. And then it's all very simple.
Yeah, some people, may think, well, this, nobody wants to hear about this thing. I'm telling you, I've helped between Everett and myself, but just by myself, maybe 900 people write their book in San Diego while I was a part of a group that did it. And some of the topics, I go, is there anybody who's going to even care about how roads are built in America? That was one of the books. You had people that wrote about crystals and about pyramids that, not pyramids in the sense of Egypt, but pyramids like you wear on your head. I'm telling you, I've seen it all, and they all sell. There's an audience for just about everything. And there's almost like a magazine for everything. If you were to actually, do the research, or a blog for everything. So don't minimize the expertise you may have or the authority you might have in something, because if you're doing it and you like it, there's probably a couple hundred, if not thousands of people that, like the same thing.
Exactly.
Is there anything that, man, we're right on schedule. We covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time. Is there anything that you want to talk about that I have not talked about, whether it's about your business, about what any kind of services you offer, or what you, some type of, you want to get somebody going with writing their book?
Well, I think one of the important things for people, especially who are writing their first book, is don't try and go it alone. You need guidance, you need help, because otherwise what happens is you put out what we see on Amazon all the time are these really badly produced books, and they don't sell, and they are a bad reflection on your brand and your image. And so you don't want to do that. So get help and go ahead and do the investment to get your first book done right, so that you have the system set up correctly, so that you can literally start publishing more and more books. Every time you want to publish another one, you've already got the system set up. It's kind of plug and play. It's pretty simple. So get help doing it right the first time, and really consider your marketing. Your book marketing is one of the most essential pieces, as important, if not more so, than once you get your book design done, because the people go after the front cover, then they read the back cover and they read the description. But really, if you're not marketing your book, they're not going to sell, and people are not going to know you're out there. So you've got to put all the pieces together. And in order to do that successfully, you're going to have help. So that's where Andy and I come into play. So yeah, get help where you need it.
Yeah, I have a question that's going to come in, but just right up here where it says andyislive.com. One of those things about marketing your book is to do what we're doing. We're doing a Facebook Live. What used to take tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars of broadcasting a live interview with somebody through ABC, NBC, or any of the others. It would take trucks and satellites. Now it just takes a phone. It just takes a phone. But andyislive.com, I teach you how to do all those things. I have a basic, intermediate, and advanced training program that will teach you how to do exactly what we're doing, which is going to be one of those things you may want to do in marketing your book. So I just want to point that out, why that URL is up there. Let's get to the Facebook user. It's coming from a group that it's not allowing the Facebook group to use their likeness, but it says, what's been your experience with a follow-up workbook that follows a #1 bestseller? How to paperback, a deeper dive on your topic. Are those workbooks effective?
Yeah, I absolutely think they are. In fact, I love it when I see somebody put out a book and then put out a workbook and then a supplemental book or an update, because you're creating multiple products and you're creating a stream of information that allows your readers and your clients to have more information as you go forward. So yeah, absolutely. Do it all.
It's interesting. I usually have my book around here somewhere. Now I can't find it. But it's called Walking with God and a Dog. And it's a Christian religious-based book, just to be right out front there. And that question reminded me that I had written a Bible study book that was based on that book and had it nearly all complete. And It's before I am where I am now with my faith, and it disappeared. So I just want to remind you, when you're writing out your book, is that you put it in a safe place as far as a drive. Maybe put it on 2 different drives, and Google Drive and Dropbox. I swear I've looked for that book. I put a lot of effort into it, and had all the places where people could answer the questions for a Bible study, and it's completely gone. But that would have been my follow up to my first #1 best-selling book, was a Bible study that went along with that. So that was just one of the things that he reminded me. It actually made me sad, because now and maybe there was something about it. Maybe it was just not time, and maybe God made it disappear. I don't know, but it cannot be found anywhere.
If it's meant to show up, it will.
Yeah, it'll show up randomly. Yeah.
And one of the other things you can do with books is, if you don't want to create a whole separate workbook, you can create those journal pages and those types of things at the end of every chapter, so that you can still have it all combined into one. But I do find that people that publish a book and then they realize, wow, there's a workbook or a journal book or something that might go along with this, that they can create those multiple products, so that when you go on Amazon, it says this person bought this and they also bought this. It's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. Do we have any other questions?
No. People, you know what I found? It's really funny, this thing with the comments and stuff like that. Sometimes what I've learned is, when there are no questions, people really are just listening to what we have to say, and they're kind of like, they're getting all the information they want. And I think maybe we've done a really good job of answering any questions that somebody might have in their head. But again, if you have any questions when you're watching the replay, no matter what platform you're watching on, just put it in the comments, and then we will do our best to get back to you the best that we can, and take care of any of those questions that you have. But we covered a lot of ground. I know there's a lot more that you and I know, because we worked in this business now for a while, and helped a lot of people. Like again, the cover, where does the copyright go? The structure of the book, and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't want to get too far into that. Oops, another question popped up possibly. But I just want to get into I want to get people off their duffs and start writing their book. Just start typing out their book. The hardest part is to begin typing, is what I found.
Yeah.
What are the top 3 marketing steps an author should take? Top 3.
Okay. Number 1 is do a great, what I call a trickle campaign or a teaser campaign, and maybe launch, on social media, start to share a little bit of the book cover, and then show the reveal of the whole cover. And you can do advance or pre-sales if you'd like. Those are great ways to do some of your marketing. I would say the next one is to make sure that you go after an Amazon bestseller campaign, and try and do that as close to your launch date as possible, so that you can hopefully get that #1 new release sticker from Amazon, which is really kind of cool, because they choose that. We don't get to choose that. And then the next one is to keep going with it. You don't just launch your book and then quit. You got to figure out, how can I continually market this book? So those would be my top 3 tips.
Right. One of the things that I'm reminded of is that if you do a webinar before you complete the book. And the reason I bring that up is because in a webinar, if you invite a bunch of people in the industry that your authority is in, and you get them into either a Zoom room or something like that, and they begin to talk and ask you questions, some of those questions will become chapters in your book. And you go, oh, that's what they want to know. I thought they wanted to know about X. Because, sometimes we are too close to the subject matter, and we think that people want to know about something. And then sometimes people go way back to the basics, but we're trying to teach them at the advanced level. Does that make sense? And so sometimes going into a webinar where people are coming in and they go, how do you plug in a computer? Like, really? Okay, well, let's start with that. And you're kind of like going, wow, I didn't realize, because sometimes we know too much about what it is we know. Right. And so we have to be reminded that not everybody is there. Not that people are stupid. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that some people are at the beginning stages, and we forget where that is. We think the beginning stages is like, at a higher level.
That's a really good point. I do find that sometimes I have to slow down and back up a little bit when I'm working with authors and say, okay, I don't know how much you know or don't know. And so just ask questions. And it doesn't matter what you're going to ask me, because I need to determine at what level your understanding is, so that I can make sure that I'm speaking your language, not my language. So Yeah.
Yep. And then creating a Facebook page and doing these shows, do a live broadcast and, talk about some stuff and ask people to comment and tell you what it is they want to know. And if they have any questions, those are some of the things that will vet out some of that information that you need to put at the front of the book. Because sometimes we start at the end of the book because, so hopefully that's good information there. All right. I was just stalling. Maybe one more question. I think we're good. All right, Susie, I'm glad we got this off the ground. I apologize. We had this scheduled before, and then my darn kids got COVID. How dare they? And
I'm hoping that they're all healthy now.
I kind of just fell off the planet for like a couple of days because we were trying to figure out what are we going to do, where are they going to stay, who's going to, because their mom lives somewhere else, and so who's going to be the quarantine location, quarantine ground zero. But we figured out everybody's healthy, and I can't wait till they go back to school. But thank you for your patience, Susie. I appreciate it very much. And again, you are just a welcome member of our mastermind group, and just thank you for your knowledge and information that you bring to the group.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's been great to see you.
All right. Take care, my friends. We'll see you at the next one. Bye.